Hi, let's talk about restraints. Sometimes patients pose a danger to themselves and to staff, and in those times, it becomes necessary to restrain the patients. While there are different kinds of restraint, there's chemical restraints, there's physical restraints. This video is about physical restraints. So, because these restraints have the potential to cause injury to a patient within the period of hospitalization, facilities and hospitals bend backwards to avoid that. So, they make strict policies around this application of restraints. And those policies are about patient safety and patient's well-being. So everything, they go to great lengths to make sure they do everything they can to avoid injury to the patient, because they don't want a bad reputation for themselves and they definitely don't want a lawsuit. So patient safety and well-being, and minimizing the restraints to the shortest possible duration. If it is not necessary, take it off. So the policies are written around these things I just mentioned now. The restraint should be a last resort. That's, you have exhausted every option to make sure that the patient is not a danger to themselves and a danger to staff. You have tried to reorient the patient, you have tried to distract the patient, there are so many things you have done to make sure, but it didn't work. So you now resort to restraint. So it should be the last option you should explore. Then it shouldn't be prolonged. It should be for a limited period of time. So there are policies written around that, and even laws that are applicable in states. Some states have a law about it. So the longest period of time a patient, an order for a restraint should be 24 hours. So if there is a need for the patient to be on restraint for longer than those 24 hours, there should be a new order. So all those things are just done to make sure that the patient is not in restraint for an unnecessarily long period of time. Then another thing is, it should be done in such a way that the patient dignity and respect is maintained. So the patient should not be disrespected because of that. The restraint should not be to punish the patient, and it should not be for disciplining the patient or for the convenience of the staff. The restraint must be justified, is what it means. The patient should be protected and the staff should be protected. Now, these restraints come in different forms. There's a wrist restraint that goes on both wrists. Those ones are 2-point restraints. So depending on what kind of restraint your patient is on, the patient may be on a soft restraint, the patient may be on bilateral restraint, the patient may be on mittens. Those ones are like gloves. Whatever kind of restraint it is, it must be specified the type of restraint and why the patient is getting that restraint. So proper documentation is done about it. On the restraint order, it comes with everything you need to do. The 2-hourly assessment you need to do as a nurse. You make sure the patient is fine. You make sure you exhausted every option before exploring the restraint. So a lot of things are there on that restraint order that you should fill out every 2 hours, document Very, very important. In fact, your charge nurse or your supervisor will be on your neck to make sure that you are doing that, because it's a very sensitive area. Even if even if there are things you should do that you are not doing, they don't follow up as much as they do for some particular things, especially things that has to do with patient injury, things that have to do with patient getting sick in the hospital, or getting injured in the hospital, or getting an infection in the hospital. They don't play with those things. So you too, don't play with them. So another thing I want to bring up is the bed rails. You know, the bed has rails, like 4 rails. Each bed has 4 rails. When you put a patient in a bed and you raise up all 4 rails, it is considered a restraint. So there should be an order for that too. Make sure that if there is no order that a patient is restrained, those 4 rails are not up, because it will be like, yeah, the patient can charge you for false imprisonment. You are imprisoning the patient. So the highest number of bed rails that should be up should be 3. Just make sure it's not up to 4, because if it's 4 and there's no order for restraint, it is not good. Now there are some beds that require that you raise those 4 rails, and those are like air mattresses, where those beds get inflated. They get inflated to the point that they are high. You know, they are higher than regular beds, so that if you don't put up those 4 rails, the patient can slide off the bed and fall. So per manufacturer's recommendation, for such beds, you can put up the 4 rails, but make sure that when you are charting it or when you are documenting it, that you have 4 rails up without a restraint order. Make sure that you put in the comments or in the notes that 4 rails up per manufacturer's recommendation, because these people, you have to, you have to cover everything. You have to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, so that you and your facility don't get in trouble. So I don't know if I mentioned, every order for restraint has to be, the longest duration has to be 24 hours. Anything more than that, there should be a new restraint order in. So for nursing implication assessment, 2-hourly assessment, you make sure that the restraint is not too tight on the patient. You slide your 2 fingers under the restraint. Make sure that there is room for the patient's hand, to get circulation. Don't make it too tight and cut off circulation. Make sure that the patient is well hydrated, the patient is well nourished, and the patient is toileted as needed. So you don't just put the patient on restraint and abandon the patient there. You should be checking those things every 2 hours. Check if the patient needs anything. Check if the patient is in any awkward position because of the restraint. And do what you are supposed to do. And then when you are applying the restraint, make sure you tie it to the part of the bed that is not movable. Don't tie it to the rails or to any part that the patient can move, and then it will come off, and that whatever is attached to it can injure the patient. Make sure you tie it to the bed frame, which is not movable, and make sure you tie it in. So there is a certain way it is tied. When you come in, you will be taught how it is tied. You tie it in a loop, like the way they tie a ribbon, with those loops, so that it's easy to remove in case of emergency. Maybe the patient arrested, you need to do compressions, you quickly remove it, you quickly untie it. If you don't tie it well, or whoever it is that tied it does not tie it well, it will be a problem untying it. So you are taught a certain way to tie it, and you tie it that way. Then there should be informed consent. Most of these patients cannot consent, so their family members, should be informed and should consent that there's a need to put them in restraint, so you put them in restraint, and everything is documented. So I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe.